Hey, football fans, welcome back to another episode of Lions Latest, the show where we gather around and talk about the greatest team in the NFL, the Detroit Lions. I'm your host, Bryan Hanes, and we have some stuff to talk about the game against the Commanders and what's going on this week with other players. But before that, if you're not already, go down and hit subscribe. Guys, we are like 9 subscribers away from 1,000 right now. I probably won't know who number 1,000 is, but if you become number 1,000, let me know. I'm sure I'll believe all 100 of you that let me know you're the 1,000th. Just kidding, of course. But seriously, you guys, your comments, everything has been super supportive, and I appreciate everything. So thank you so much. With that being said, let's jump into today's video. Starting off with Dan, the play caller. Hey, OC Dan. OC Dan did pretty good, guys. Dan Campbell compared the situation he's in right now, calling plays with the offensive coordinator John Morton, to how things went down in 2021. Campbell sees this as an opportunity for Morton to see how he likes the offense rolling, right? There's been a lot of complaints on it doesn't look like the same offense. We're not doing the things that were effective last year. And I think Dan Campbell's trying to sway us back into that area of where things have been. He wants John Morton to learn his tendencies, what he likes, what Jared Goff likes, and how he grows. Campbell compared to this kind of situation to Ben Johnson's start. Johnson was the team's passing game coordinator, if some of you knew, and got to work closely with Campbell and Goff for the years before he was the OC, working close together, learned how to coach the running offense and the passing offense, got a good feel for who can do the most, and then he ended up hitting the ground running with Detroit's offense in 2022. So it just feels like it's better to not jump straight into this thing with a high-powered offense like we have. Maybe learn what the best possible strategy is going to be and what your guys like the most, right? Dan Campbell said, quote, but he watched, he learned, and he saw how I ran it, how I wanted to run it, what I was looking for. And then he evolved it from there rather. He took it and knew exactly what I wanted. And by the middle of 2022, I didn't have to say a word. So kind of referring to Ben Johnson and how after he kind of figured out what works, Dan Campbell didn't have to get involved at all. And I think that's where they're trying to get with John Morton right now. Obviously, Ben Johnson had more time to grow and develop, but with us not having that time, it's just kind of, hey, this is what we want to do, watch and learn type of deal. Campbell did his best to leave the door open for Morton, though, to potentially step back into the role of calling plays, but the Lions coach plans to continue calling plays this week against the Philadelphia Eagles and will continue to lean on what he calls a truly collaborative process. Campbell made it clear that he needs John Morton. It's not a thing where he's sidelining his OC. He is there for help. He is there for advice. He sees it from a different point of view, and that he loves the offensive coordinator's ideas, tendency identification, and work in the passing attack, because after all, John Morton is a passing game coordinator. So getting his advice on what would be best for passing is going to be a good choice if you're a head coach. And it's always good to, rely on the people you've surrounded yourself with, despite some of the poor choices in passing that we had when John Morton was playing play calling. In his first game calling play since 2021, the Lions won 44-22 while totaling 500 plus yards on offense and getting everyone involved at the same time. It just felt normal in a way, right? Campbell admittedly loves calling the offense and has proven he's quite good at it despite him not doing it so much. And most importantly, he likes doing it when they win. To his words, right? Obviously, you don't want to be the guy who calls plays and loses, and that's going to happen every once in a while. It might even happen with Dan Campbell, so it's not to say that, it's a perfect solution, but it's definitely helping our situation right now. So far, it reminds me of the scheme from last year. A lot more attention to both running backs, getting them both established, and then spreading the ball to all the weapons downfield, because if you can get JMO going, they got to worry about JMO. When they're worrying about JMO, you give the ball to a running back. Then they got to contain the running back. You find your guy in the slot. It's a good pattern we've been able to establish, and it was kind of lacking this year, but we definitely saw a lot more from it when Dan Campbell kind of got us back on the path we like to be on. But that's what I saw from Dan Campbell. I think he did a great job, guys. There's definitely a chance it doesn't continue to be that successful. Again, we were facing a team with multiple injuries, so I'm not going to say it was easier for us, but we definitely had a lot more weight on our side going in, or not weight, but a lot more help going into this game with them being out a quarterback, star cornerback. We had some injuries too, obviously, but don't think that Dan Campbell is the perfect solution, but he's definitely helping us out right now. You guys let me know what you think about that. It's going to take us to our second topic. Just some good news on some players that we've mentioned. Well, good and some bad, not so good for the Commanders. First, I want to start with the good. Ahmed Hassanin has returned to the practice squad On Monday, the team announced that they had signed Ahmed Hassanin to the practice squad, a defensive end out of Boise State. Hassanin returns to Detroit after the team waived him with an injury designation when he towards the conclusion of final cuts because he had taken that injury during the camp. General Manager Brad Holmes vowed to retain Hassanin at the conclusion of the injury settlement. Teams who waive players with an injury designation are not allowed to bring that player back until 3 weeks after an agreed upon settlement expires, and they're actually allowed to join any team they want in the meantime. But it seems like we kind of had Hassanin locked down from the beginning. It just seems like he wants to be here, and I'm not even sure if teams were even looking at him. Brad Holmes said, quote, "Yeah, so it's a good decision." So yeah, there's multiple avenues that we could have went with on this one. What we wanted to do is what is going to be the best path for him to get back to the practice field when he's healthy, and the injury settlement was the way to go, especially him specifically with where he is at in his football career. The only thing that's like, so after you do the injury settlement in terms of the length and settlement with the weeks you have to tack on, additional 3 weeks, and you have to wait until we can get him back. There's a good chance that he might get healthy even before then, within those weeks. But bottom line, he's going to be a Detroit Lion. He's going to be back on the football field playing this year. I love it, Brad Holmes. That's what you told me what I wanted to hear, honestly, and I'm not too mad about it. Maybe it's not totally true in terms of playing this year, but because I don't know if he's going to get any starts. But I like what you're saying, Brad Holmes. I'm a big fan of what you're putting down. It makes me happy. I think Hassanin's one of these guys we're going to see in a couple of years really break out, especially because he's so new to the game still, in a sense, and he's so good at it because he's such a student of the game, and that's what makes him so great. Heading into the team's Week 11 matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles, Hassanin will be returning to the organization. He could be in contention to join the active roster either as a game day elevation or as a signing. A 6th-round pick out of Boise State, Hassanin's story was actually one of the most captivating ones in the preseason if you were a Lions fan. He was born in Egypt and didn't start playing football until 6 years ago, so the fact that he's gotten to where he is now is absolutely incredible. I think that only shows how much potential this guy has, right? And you could be thinking right now, well, he's only been playing for 6 years. Why not take the guy that knows more of the game than him? I think that's because he knows more of the game than some of these other guys. That's what has gotten him to this level so quickly. And if he's only been playing for 6 years, what's going to happen when we develop him on an NFL roster for the next 2 to 3 years? I think we're going to see some good things out of Ahmed Hassanin, guys, and I think the only place for him to go right now is up, especially after he's coming back and the city is hyped for him. I know that I definitely am. So yeah, I'm hype about that. Next, Daron Payne for the Commanders, right? Suspended 1 game for smacking St. Brown. The NFL announced Monday that Payne was suspended without pay for unsportsmanlike conduct. Payne appealed this suspension, but the punishment was upheld by hearing officer Raymond Foster. It marked the actual first career ejection for the 8-year veteran. Washington's defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw said, however, after the game, that St. Brown was the one who started it, and he had punched Payne on a prior play. After they scored, St. Brown apparently gone up, said something to Payne, kind of just chirping a little bit. According to St. Brown, it wasn't like that crazy. He was just trying to, trip back a little bit after he was talking smack that drive. And then out of nowhere, the punch happened from Payne. Now, there's no footage of St. Brown throwing a punch beforehand, but I get it. Stick up for your buddy. The bottom line being, don't touch St. Brown, man. Yeah, you get suspended. He's one of those star receivers, and he's my guy. Don't touch St. Brown. No. Don't do that. 1 game suspension seems about right. I don't know if there's any word on a fine, but there's definitely a 1 game suspension, and we're just gonna have to wait and see how that affects them next week when they face Miami. Yeah, so that's all of that I have on that. I think it was just kind of an update to what we knew. He got ejected. We knew that, before the game, he was telling his teammates in the huddle that they could rely on him because he was going to be there every snap. And then he went out pretty early. So I don't know. I don't know how well your teammates are going to continue to rely on you if you're not going to play half the game, but I don't know about that. Lastly, Terrion Arnold, we have an injury update on him. Arnold left Sunday's game in the first half and didn't return. A lot of us didn't know what was going on because it seems like he just disappeared. But on Monday, Campbell announced and confirmed that Arnold was placed on concussion protocol. So we knew he was dealing with a concussion. Here's what's going on now. Well, first of all, Arnold has allowed 21 catches for 322 yards and a touchdown on 37 targets this season, with just 1 interception and 4 pass breakups. Now, granted, it's his first interception, so that's hype. The 4 pass breakups were in some pretty clutch moments, but those are still not great numbers for him. with that being said, he's getting better noticeably over the last few games, and injuries like concussions are really going to slow that down, and I think that's the biggest fear out of fans right now. While the 2024 first round pick has dropped his passer rating when targeted from 100.4 in his rookie season to 83.4 this season, that hasn't made up for the leap. That really hasn't been the leap we were expecting. However, I'm not going to be greedy. If he's getting better, he's getting better, because the longest story for the longest time has been how much of a bust he is. Losing him against the Eagles would be bad news at a big time. But we're going to have to see more on that later this week. We don't know if he's going to play or not. There is some worries he won't, but we have no confirmation yet. I like what he's been doing. I've liked what I've seen from him in the last 2 games. I want him to continue developing, and that means he's got to be at practice. So obviously the concussion protocol is not doing him any favors in that aspect. But if he does play against the Eagles, we're just going to have to continue to see how he is developing and if he can continue to get better at the areas that he wants to focus on, i.e. the rushing game. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that, but that's all we have on him right now. You guys can tell me if you know anything I haven't heard, but just let me know right now in the comments. And next, we're talking about what went well. What were the improvements that were made in the eyes of Dan Campbell? He was calling plays. He could see what needed to be done against the Vikings, and it just kind of seemed like he took the reins into his own hands and made those adjustments. According to Dan Campbell, Detroit's offense line played big time ball. As a unit, they did not allow a sack or a tackle for loss and plowed their way for 546 total yards on offense, like we mentioned. Campbell said everyone will receive a game ball for the way that they played on Sunday. So everyone's getting a game ball. Dan Campbell's fired up. Dan Campbell saw the improvements he wanted to see. Everyone did a good job. Hey, everyone get a game ball. Awesome. I love that. Fire up your players. For defense, Campbell liked the performance overall, but said that there were some opportunities where they were in a position to make some plays and didn't. And I definitely know what he's talking about there. Just some missed coverage, some stuff like touchdowns where it didn't end up mattering, but it's just like, why are we letting random touchdowns happen? He said they'll have to finish better in Philadelphia next week against a very dangerous offense with great skill players. Now, I just watched some of the Eagles-Packers game, and that dangerous offense doesn't look too dangerous right now, but they can pop off at any moment, guys, especially against a battered secondary. Campbell did commend, though, the performances of defensive end Roy Lopez, or defensive tackle Roy Lopez. Actually, he had a couple tackles. He had some good plays. Good for him. Safety Brian Branch, linebacker Jack Campbell, who had an insane stop at the goal line, cornerback Rocky Sin, who had some great passes defended, and cornerback Terry Arnold, who was doing, I'm going to say it, he was doing real good before he ended up going out. So good to commemorate those guys. On special teams, this is one of the things we kind of struggled with last week, especially on kick returns. Dan Campbell said it was an overall better effort collectively for special teams than the week prior, but Detroit did allow one big kickoff return. Overall, though, Campbell was impressed with the units as a whole, right? He shouted out linebacker Jack Campbell, linebacker Grant Stewart, linebacker Trevor Nowaski, and running back Sion Vaki for their individual performance on teams. I think all of them did their part, especially Grant Stewart had some great tackles to not allow momentum to get going on some of those kick returns. And I think that's a big thing of what we've missed this year is getting those quick tackles. Grant Stewart did a great job of stuffing them back there. Finally, he talked about Jamison Williams in particular and how he loves football and his love for the game and how it's just infectious to the teammates and himself. Campbell said Williams had a big game on Sunday with 6 receptions and for 119 yards and a touchdown. He said that Williams has an unbridled amount of energy that others feed off of, and Williams will do anything on the football field to see both of his teammates and himself have success. Campbell has spoken in the past of how much he loves JMO, his game, his love for the ball, and that's probably why he was getting more targets as him being the OC. I don't know that for sure. That was partially a joke, but I think he just showing love to his guys, and the love's coming back tenfold with how JMO performed. I think that's great too, right? If JMO's not getting the receptions he wanted the last few games, not last game, but the games before that, right? He's still going out there and having fun. He's not being negative. He's still supporting his teammates. And I think that's huge, especially when you know you are good enough to be getting the numbers you think you deserve, right? And you're still going to be positive. You're not going to let it pull on anyone else, right? You're still going to make sure everyone's succeeding. That's an example of a great teammate and a great leader. And I think Jim was really starting to come into his own on this Lions team. Dan said overall that the team needs to do more, what they did and more to beat the Eagles. And I think if he's making the corrections he's been making, we're going to be good. We're going to do a good job, and I have no doubt in this team. That's taking us to comments. I have some good ones here. Jeffrey Zip said, the O-line has something to prove against Washington. Now, I like this comment a lot because I like it more than the statement of this was a must-do, a do-or-die, a comeback game for the Lions as a team. I don't think this was the game to really prove that we are the same team, right? Because we're going up against a very beaten and battered Commanders team. But I like what you say about the O-line needing to prove something, especially with backups in. It was really a challenge to see how well we could protect Goff in a game where we knew we could do it. We knew we were going against a team we were better than. And I think they did a great job, obviously allowing 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss. They did their job to a T, and I liked that even our backups who were going in for some players during injuries when they were off the sidelines were standing in, doing their jobs. It just seemed like everyone was locked in and everybody was doing their jobs. I like that comment, Jeffrey Zip. Thank you so much. And Great White says, I see a personal foul coming for that absolute disgusting late hit. That hit that guy on Wash did to Goff in the playoff game. Yeah, I think especially, and I'm glad you brought this up. Not even the playoff game, but I knew it just wasn't me seeing it from this game. There were a few late hits on Goff, guys. I mean, I get it. If you got to finish your tackle, you can't just stop on a tee. There's momentum involved. But there were some plays where a guy would go up to block the pass. He'd come down, take a couple steps, and still extend his arms to push Goff down, like way after the pass is out. And to me, that seems like a little much. In my opinion, if we are going to protect one quarterback in the league, we need to protect all of them. Not saying that we need to make the game soft, but if you're going to do it for one player, if Goff's getting knocked down time after time and after time again, and it just seems like some of these are at least a little late, you got to start picking up on that a little bit. Despite that, he took him like a champ, played a great game, down after down. Great stuff from Jared Goff. Thank you for your comment. Great White. And finally, I just saw this guy, Michael Van Brocklin, commenting on all of your guys' comments saying, quote, nope, the Commanders are going to dismantle, embarrass the Lions 37-14. This was on nearly every single comment. I thought it was quite funny in the hindsight, obviously. Womp womp. A lot of you guys were like, yeah, we'll see, buddy. Yeah, totally. We'll see, buddy. And I mean, we doubled their scores. So there's all I got to say about that. I thought you guys did a great job in the comments on your own telling them what's what. But I just wanted to mention that real quick. It made me chuckle a little bit. With that being said, we're out of time today. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Lions Latest. If you made it to this point in the video, tell me what you guys thought about Dan Campbell calling the offense and what your biggest takeaways were from that game. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell so you never miss a single video here. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.